Please subscribe, like, comment, and turn on the notification button so you are aware of our future episodes that you will love so much. Hi guys, welcome to the Film Biz Show, Africa Rising International Film Festival edition. We are at the tail end of what's been a phenomenal event, showcasing wonderful short films that have been created by some of the most dynamic filmmakers from our continent. I have with me Phumi Morare, who is the writer and director of Why the Cattle Wait.
Ndiza kulinda mntanomntu kukrazuka kusopha izibhakabhaka apho amaphakade afukanyelwa azalwa kubutsha,
which was a film that opened the festival. Last night we left the opening, being touched, moved. We connected to something other than just what is in front of us. While watching your film, you really took us to another world with your pen and your mind and your vision. And what an honor it is for us to have you today with us having this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, that's actually such a nice introduction. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so Phumi, we got to have an extensive conversation yesterday, during the Q&A. I think a lot of people were really moved by the story that you told. Could you just give us an idea of what exactly was the inspiration to you creating Why the Cattle Wait?
Okay, there were a few things that inspired me. So the first one was I was reading, as I mentioned last night, Credo Mutwa's Indaba My Children. And I really fell in love with one of the main characters, the goddess Ma, who's like this mother goddess, and she's got this turbulent relationship with the humans that she birthed. And there's a story where she has there's like a Noah's Ark moment where she restarts everything, and she ends the world and starts afresh because of what they've done. And I was thinking about that story a lot and thinking about some of the things that have happened in our world history, particularly for Africans. And I think at the time because I was in the US at the time, I was thinking a lot about colonialism and its influence on us and what it's done, because I was interacting with African Americans and hearing their experience, and then I was thinking about our country and our experience. And so I was thinking, imagine if the goddess Ma had foreseen some of these things. I wonder if she would have done something, and then I thought, well, if she could have done something, why wouldn't she have? Why didn't she? So, and then at the time, I was really wanting to write a love story. And I had been inspired by this East African love story of a goddess that fell in love with a human. So that kind of became the premise of why she doesn't act on what she foresees. And then another thing I was inspired by was, I also mentioned last night that I'd seen these images by the photographer Christopher Rimmer of the cows that are on the beach in the Eastern Cape, and the way he captured them in this very godlike, human-like way as well. And I thought about those stories from when I was a kid of explaining why animals, why the leopard has its spots or whatever. And I thought, I wonder if there's a story behind why they go there, and that's how it kind of all came together.
Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful how you managed to capture the relationship of the animals to this young man who'd fallen in love with this goddess, and you could really see there was a communication between the two. But it always seems easier when you look at the edited version of it. How was it handling these animals?
Yeah, that was It was very tricky. We had to be very strategic because I guess I was warned for like months leading up to the shoot how hard it is to work with animals. So one of the things that we gave ourselves was an extra shoot day or half a day to just be able to capture specific things with the animals or give us extra time with the animals, especially with the cow that we call the hero cow. So we knew that it was going to take long for us to get what we needed from her. So we gave ourselves like maybe double the time that you would take to shoot a scene with that like a normal scene without an animal. We gave ourselves double the time. And then we had this incredible animal wrangler called Faisal. His name is Faisal Sali, and what he does is he comes beforehand, before the shoot. He spends time with the animals, getting to know them, helping them get to know him and establish a relationship. And then he susses out like the ones that are the easiest or most willing to be worked with and stuff. And so that's how we found our hero cow. She was the most willing to sort of be led by herself. That was the big thing, is her going away from the group without feeling like she needs to quickly go back. And it was also, but it was tricky because she was a new mother. So she had a calf that was like always tagging along. So having to distract the calf was also like another thing, and having to make sure the mom sees the calf, you know. It was tricky, but it was also a lot of fun. Yeah, because everyone was telling me it was going to be stressful, but like I was like, this is so much fun. Like,
Labor of love, yeah.
yes. And I'm like, wow, these animals are actually like, we're actually working with them in the scene, and even like getting them to all like go towards the ocean.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
So that one was also very like a crafted moment. We're like, okay, we need like this very super high angle wide shot of these cows like moving towards the beach, towards Nomvula. And so we're like, okay, we're gonna need a drone for this.
Yeah.
And we found the exact spot, and we had done like a previs of it as well. And then we had to coordinate with the animal wrangler and the cow herdsman as well. Well, he coordinated with them on like moving them forward. So, and then there was a moment where they did something spontaneous, which was beautiful, where she started moving and then from her spot, and then they all turned and moved with her, and then they created like these tracks on the beach. So that was like a nice spontaneous, one of those movie magic moments.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've, you know, as you were speaking, it just felt as if there was, you know, for lack of, you know, sounding, you know, like too spiritual, but it sounded like there was you know, another element, you know, there was something there. You know, you spoke about how you imagined a particular cow and how the wrangler had to go and choose a cow with the right temperament.
Yes.
You know, and
yes.
it's all about temperament, right? I mean, with these
Yes.
things, you want to get the right frequency. You don't want to get a cow that's, even though it has the right look, but
Yes.
you know, that's not going to work with you well.
Yeah.
And you managed to get the cow that looks exactly the way you envisioned it. You know.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny when you talk about the spiritual component, because a lot of us, because the movie was extremely hard to make, and even pre-production was very, very tough, especially because we were shooting in a different location, and just having to, and that location is not like well serviced in terms of like production stuff. So just having to figure things out like that in a rural place was hard. But we kept saying, a bunch of us, or the HODs at least, kept saying, for some reason, despite all these obstacles, this movie wants to be made, because it's moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so much that's standing in the way, but the movie wants to be made. So that's what we just resolved. But I feel like that's like that with, you know, all movies, because, you know, they say that every movie is a miracle because of how hard it is to make. Yeah.
It's no child's play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weather conditions, how were those?
So it's funny, leading up to the shoot, we had done like location scouts and stuff beforehand, right? And it was extremely hot and extremely humid. So we prepared everyone for like extreme heat and humidity. And then leading up to the shoot, as we're checking the weather, it's like, no, it's actually going to rain.
Oh, Lord.
So we had to just make all these last minute plans, like get like these covers for the cameras and the equipment and stuff like that, and think about like how were we going to shoot in the rain. And but there was only so much we could plan for, because like the place where we were shooting had a lot of dirt roads. So like at some points it's like, okay, we actually now can't even bring all the vehicles, the heavy equipment vehicles, to the shoot spot. So we're gonna have to cart them with a bakkie, you know. And so there were those kinds of obstacles that happened because of the weather. And then I think I mentioned yesterday also, there was a time where it just poured so heavily that we had to stop for 2 hours, which was very stressful, because you know you're always running out of time on set already. And then, but the one thing the weather did do, which was actually serving the film, is it created a mood. Yeah, because there were all these, it was always like kind of like the sky was very like overcast and somber. So me and the cinematographer spoke about, okay, how can we use this to our advantage, you know? So we basically made it part of the mood of the film. Yeah.
Which worked very well.
Yeah.
Very well, along with the soundscape created by your composer. I think it created this very eerie, you know, kind of audio aesthetic, which worked so well. But I just want to delve into your own personal journey as a filmmaker. I mean, whatever brought you into this crazy world of filmmaking?
I know, you.
Hey, where did it all start?
It's funny because it started in high school. I had an English teacher who, when we were doing English literature, she also incorporated film, study of film in our classes. And I fell in love with film when we did Shawshank Redemption. We watched that. Yeah. And the reason why I fell in love with it, so I was doing a lot of theater and stuff, and I was doing creative writing. And then I thought like one day I'll be in the theater space. But then with cinema, and it's not like that I think it's superior or anything, I just loved the different like aspects of cinema, and the score and the camera angles and the, you know, I just loved that. Being able to play with those things. And so when we were studying Shawshank, we got to learn the story of like how it was made, and also the director's choices and all the different layers, you know, that were in the story. And I just found that so beautiful. And I felt like it's also a very, it's funny because when I was on my journey of getting away from the Hollywood paradigm and going to African cinema, I was following Osman Sembene and some of his writings, and he would talk about how he actually used to write novels, but then he felt like the social message he was trying to share wasn't widely accessible enough, and that's the reason why he went into cinema, purely for that reason, accessing the audience. So one of the things I love so much about cinema is being able to access the audience that way, in a wider way. And because I'm very like inclined to like social issues and social messages, it feels like a very powerful medium for that. Yeah.
Now, you know, then you happened to leave the country to do some work in the States. How did that come about?
Okay.
And what was your experience of being there?
Okay. So actually before that, I completely left film and creativity because so I went into finance. Actually.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay. So you studied Shawshank Redemption in high school.
Yes.
You graduate from high school.
Yes.
You had to make a career choice, and you chose finance.
Yes, and that was a lot of family pressure. They were like, "Oh, this creative stuff is cute, but you're really good at maths, and our family doesn't do that stuff."
Yeah, we're more this.
Yeah, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So I went into one of the more like I guess mainstream career types, and so I went into finance, and I did that for 8 years or 7 years, I think. Yeah. So my first job.
Goodness.
Yeah. I've had a whole other life. But,
and this is so interesting.
So my first job was in investment banking.
Yeah.
And then I moved into management consulting, but the itch was always there, you know. So I would be dabbling on the side. I would be doing short courses in film. I'd be going to festivals wherever I was located. At some point, I was working in London. I was going to festivals in Europe and London. And then when I was back home, I just felt like I actually need to do this. But it took me 3 years to take the leap.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because of just that fear of leaving like that stable income and that like clear path to, you know, having like financial success and stuff like that. So yeah, but then I left and then I started working part-time in the space. And then I decided to go, and I did that for about 18 months. I got into the NFBF youth filmmaker program, so I got to make a short through that. And then I got to use it to apply to film school in the US. And I felt like I needed to do that because I felt so far behind my peers, and that
you had to get like a step ahead.
Yes. And also, I don't think everyone necessarily needs film school, but it also like my personality, like I need that structured learning environment that's also going to force me to progress in my learning. So that's why I needed it. And then I also chose the US just because I wanted the international like experience. So yeah, so that's how I got to the US. And then when I was there, I got to do some internships at like really awesome production companies like Plan B Entertainment.
Oh wow,
and
man.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Wonderful opportunities.
Yeah. So that was very, very cool, getting to feel like I'm in the sort of center of Hollywood.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then I also...
Did you get to see Brad Pitt?
No, he doesn't come into
Hey, Brad.
No, that would have been so crazy.
But what an opportunity.
Yeah, it was amazing. And the team there is really incredible. So getting to like experience sort of the gold standard of Hollywood filmmaking was great. And getting to interact with some of my heroes and attend like Q&As and stuff, that was really nice, being so close. But I also... started to feel constrained as a South African creator, because I was like, you know what, I actually just want to make South African stories, and I feel like I need to be home for that. I feel like I need to be in the atmosphere of home. And actually, so my thesis for film school, it was a story based on my mom, and I wanted to shoot it in Joburg because that's where the story takes place. And I got so much pushback from my school about shooting in Joburg, and because they felt like I wouldn't have like the safety net of the school with me, because they actually want you to just shoot within like a 30-kilometer radius of the school.
Okay.
And then they felt like, and we don't know South Africa, and like insurance and whatever, it's risky. They were like, why don't you just cheat LA for Joburg?
That's impossible.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, that is impossible.
No.
Yeah, and they were like, no, there's some places. And to appease them, we went and we scouted, and we're just like, no, guys. And then on top of that, like, it's not like the South African look is just generic, you know, like...
No, it's very specific.
Yes, we look a specific way.
Do.
Yeah.
We do.
And then on top of that, the language, you know, so I'm like, how am I going to find like South African actors speaking Vernac in LA? It's like a really small community there of South Africans. So I was just like, no, for the sake of authenticity, I'm going to fight to shoot in Joburg. And I had to jump through so many hoops, had to do triple the work of my classmates and stuff just to be allowed to shoot here. And it was so worth it, because that film, even though people told me, they were like, nobody's going to care about a movie about a Black African woman set in the 80s anyways, you know.
Who was saying this?
Just peers and
For real?
Yeah, they were just like... Oh, I think, and it was mostly also the foreign language aspect. They were just like, also, why is it not in English? Because who's gonna care
Yeah.
about, they're like, there's so many barriers to entry into this film for a global audience. So, but I was like, no, this is my thesis. It has to represent me, as a filmmaker. So I went ahead and I did it. And then it got shortlisted for an Oscar.
Oh my
And-
word, no. Your story just, no. That doesn't it ever stop? Doesn't it become normal somewhere? This is crazy. Got
Yeah.
nominated for an Oscar.
Well, shortlisted.
no, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, Phumi.
Yeah, and it won a NAACP Image Award.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess people do care about a foreign language film about
My
a black
God.
woman in Africa. Yeah. So that taught me to just be true to my craft and to be true to what I believe I should be the story I believe I should be telling. Because with that one, I also felt like it wanted me to tell it, but it was too hard. Like all the hoops I had to jump through were just too hard. But I'm like, but the story wants me to tell it. And one of my mentors was like, he considers filmmakers or storytellers in general as like the spiritual mediums
Yeah.
through which we like stories come into the world.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're a vessel. So that's how I saw myself. Yeah.
My goodness,
Yeah.
that is that's an amazing story. It's it's an amazing story. Firstly, I mean, your experience in finance, you fail in any way, does it inform your process? Because obviously you co-produced this film. Why cattle's wait?
Why the cattle waits?
Why the cattle wait?
Yeah.
Does it somehow, is it a tool that you can still use in your current process?
Yeah, definitely. Because it specifically helps me in raising financing. Yeah. So because I can speak the lingo of the financiers, and because I can do the analysis as well, and I love numbers still, it's been helping me in that way. So I guess that helps the producer side of me. Yeah.
It's amazing. An old friend was saying there is no knowledge that's wasted.
Yeah.
Whatever you learn, whatever you gain on your journey, it always informs your next season in your life.
Yeah.
I know you're working very closely with Layla.
Yes.
And is there some interesting works that you guys are currently kind of working on?
Yes. We do have some stuff in the pipeline that I'm excited about. Specifically, a feature film that's going to be my first feature.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Phumi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to go to the next
And the next
step.
the
Yeah.
next,
Yeah, and Layla's just such an incredible person to partner with, because she really believes in emerging filmmakers. And she's also a huge supporter of women as well, emerging women. And she actually chose the hard path, because she chose the path of helping to create the next generation, and of independent cinema and the art of cinema.
Yeah.
She's so much a champion for that, and that's extremely hard to choose that path. But I respect her so much for it. Yeah.
She chose the path less beaten.
Yes.
For the rest of us to kind of walk on. So that's very inspiring. So I mean, Phumi, I've got two questions, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is a very impactful story. Clearly, people were teary-eyed when they left. People were elated.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'm around me. I mean, for
Really?
real.
Oh my gosh, guys! Wow.
For real,
Yes.
But I mean, the one question that Kevin did have the whole time is why can't we make these stories more accessible in the mainstream? What is that barrier? And for as someone who's been in the heart of Hollywood to see actually how the mechanics work,
Yes.
maybe and coming back home and seeing how the industry, the format in which the industry is currently run, maybe you can give us a bit of your insight as to why these particular kinds of stories that reconscientize us, or just open that portal of imagination.
Yes.
Why aren't these being kind of put into the mainstream? But also
Yeah.
also the second one is now, you did say that the main character of this film, who was the goddess, the water creature, was informed by mythological, a character in Ntate Credo Mutwa's book, Indaba My Children, which that book talks about the African version of the story of creation, And we were having a debate last night, myself and the team, and we were just talking about all these different things. I mean, Kopano was talking about the drugs that are infested in our community. We were talking about all these ills that we're finding in our society.
Yeah.
But the real question is, while we're faced with so many things, why do I want to hear about a mythological, all these characters, these archetypes that
Yes.
aren't really somehow, they're not directly connected to my everyday lived experience?
Yes. It's a very deep, layered question, which I would love to actually do a whole study on. It's like the importance of our mythology to us. But I'm going to answer it in two ways. The first thing is, so I think it's both history and mythology are important. So I'm actually, a lot of the films I want to make are historical. And even when I was telling people, oh, this film that I'm making now is set in like the 1400s, they were like, the 1400s? Do you even know what happened in the 1400s, But I'm like, no, we can tell those stories, and it's important because we need to know that there's a version of us before colonization as well. And I was speaking to some friends about some African history, like across the continent, that we don't learn in school. But we're busy learning about what the Europeans did and the Americans did, but there's such rich history, including pre-colonial history on the continent. And when we have access to that, it will build in so much self-pride in ourselves, because we've believed the colonizer's story that there's something wrong with us, and we're broken and we're lazy and whatever. But actually, if we had access to those stories, we'd actually realize, no, we're actually so great. And so right now I'm working through the set of books by UNESCO. That was like a 60, 70-year project of rewriting the history of the continent from the lens of Africans. And I think 2/3 of the scholars on the team were from the continent, and they used oral history and stuff like that. They tracked it down, and they also validated oral history as a form of history telling. So that's my one tangent, to say like why just seeing ourselves in those different ways is important. But with mythology specifically, so if you study Asian cinema, they don't actually use, so what we are using in a lot of the world right now is the Hollywood model of the hero's journey, which is based on Western mythology, right? It's based on a Western paradigm of seeing the world. And actually, if you look at a lot of Asian cinema, it doesn't use the hero's journey, or the 3-act structure. They have their own, which I'm still learning and studying. They have their own sort of paradigm and view and mythologies, which don't follow the same structure. And even okay, I hope I'm not going to ramble too much, because
That's exactly what we need.
Oh, okay.
That's what you're here for.
Okay, no, because I'm still like formulating some of these ideas. So I'm like grabbing from here and here. But I was listening to a podcast actually about how even like the way that people approach the Bible or religion in the West versus the East. So there's apparently a Western paradigm of viewing spirituality, which is very like left brain kind of thinking. And then there's a Eastern, and that includes the east of the world, including the African continent, which has like a more conceptual understanding of spirituality. And so the way that even people engage with the Bible in the East versus the West is very different, or whatever kind of religion. And I found this when I was in film school. I would sometimes have like these ethereal ideas in my work, in the short films I did at school, and my professors would be like, but like, why do you put the stuff in your work? Like, and also they would say stuff like, do you know, like symbolism is very primitive, you know? And I'm like, what? Symbolism is yeah, it's very deep and meaningful, and it's very like right brain. But they're like, no, we must have like this story structure and this linear kind of way of thinking. And so I found solace in like even like African American literature, like Toni Morrison, Alice Walker. They actually, you'll see, like when I talk about the collective unconscious that we have as a human race, we have it as Africans as well. So the way that they tell stories, the way Toni Morrison in the book Beloved just assumes that she doesn't explain the spiritual aspects of that book. You just know that there's a spirit living in her house. All the black people who come visit, they're like, oh, there's a spirit here, and then they move on. You know, she doesn't explain it or anything. And then her dead child comes back from the dead as an adult. She doesn't explain that. It's a very deeply spiritual book, and if she was writing from that Western lens, she would have explained those things, but she doesn't. She just takes them as a given, and she's like, this is just the way things are, and this is how we perceive the world. So I'm rambling and I'm not being succinct, because these are all like thoughts that I'm currently like processing myself. So I'm sorry for that. But so basically mythology is important because it allows us to approach the world from our own paradigm and way of thinking. And maybe another example to explain that is I remember going to a conference where this American woman came here, and she was saying, you know, the problem with you people here is that you all want to do things as a collective, you know. She's like, you can't get anything done as a collective. It has to be about me. And I was just like, how? This woman, she doesn't know the power of Ubuntu, you know? And the fact that we've been convinced into individualism being a thing, whereas actually for us, it is about the collective. We do speak in we's. Like I've been told so much when I'm pitching in America, stop saying we so much, say I, you know? And I'm like, oh, but I don't think like that. So having our mythology in the mainstream helps us communicate our way of moving and thinking and in this world.
Okay, you deserve.
That's the best way I can explain.
If I was your lecturer, I'd give you a 10 out of 10 right now, because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You really broke it down. I mean, when we greet each other, Sanmonani, Dumelang, Lekai, Riting, even if it's just you and me in the room.
Yes.
And you're all right, that paradigm is really killing us.
Yes.
You know, I mean, one does get a bit anxious to say, okay, well, aren't we brainwashed to a point where, I mean, by the whole Western narrative, that if we try and reintroduce these African, or do you think that internal memory will be triggered? Ne?
Yeah, it's in us, because one of the things that people were saying to me yesterday is they're like, oh, this film felt like it was touching something inside of me, something like that's deep inside me. And that made me realize, these things are within us. Yeah. They're in our collective memory. Yeah. Just have to remember. We have to remember who we are.
Quick one. This is just my, when reading Endeavor My Children, didn't you see a film there? A little Game of Thrones?
I did. I did, but I was like, whew, that's for the future.
That's for the future, right?
Yes,
yeah. So here's to the future.
Yes. Here's to the future. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, Phumi, your story is is incredible. It's incredible, yeah. And I think I see similarities with my personal story, because I spent 8 years, between 6 to 8 years in corporate IT.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the first 2 were obviously my interns, but
yes.
But now that I'm in this space, working as a storyteller, I'm very thankful for the corporate experience that I had, as grueling as it was, as haunting as this this calling was to go and really focus on my purpose.
Yes.
That path was also very necessary.
Yeah.
Now we've got a podcast, which is
wow.
pivoting into a digital company.
Oh,
You know, so
nice.
all that information, all those things eventually do come in and help you as a producer. And so it's a very inspiring story. But you know, just to close it off from the Film Biz show, we just want to wish you all the very best in your journey.
Thank you.
And may you keep the light, you know, burning, you know, with the highest of heat. You know, when I saw you yesterday, I really was moved. You know, in my heart, I was like, that's a powerhouse. And you know, on your shoulders, there's such great people that are with you. You know, real. You know, for me, I feel like you are one of the torchbearers. You know, and I know it's a very heavy burden to have on your shoulders. So from the team, we just want to say, you know, we support you.
Thank you.
And we would like to just give you your flowers. May your path and your journey be as clear as day.
Oh, thank you.